Hey, happy Wargame Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Yes, I've got a special double dip tonight. I've got a 2 for Wednesday. No, that doesn't work. It's usually 2 for Tuesdays on the radio stations, right? Well, it's a 2 for Wednesday because on tonight's show, I am reviewing The Dark Sands, WWII North Africa, 1942-42, designed by Ted S. Racier. I think that's how it's pronounced. It is from our friends over at GMT Games. So that's the review. And I am actually going to do a first look as a special bonus. Instead of doing tabletop gaming news tonight, as a special bonus, I will be taking a first look at Chile 73, which is from Tiny Battle Publishing. Yes, that's right, it is Tiny Battle Publishing. This is not necessarily a war game, but this is kind of a coup d'etat game. So we will take a first look at this. The reason why is because not only does it look pretty cool, but Wargame Wednesdays are actually sponsored by Flying Pig Games, as well as Tiny Battle Publishing. Yes, both companies are the brainchilds of my good friend Mark H. Walker. So, Flying Pig Games and Tiny Battle Publishing are my sponsors for Wargame Wednesdays. So, thank you very much. So, I always like to point out, if you're looking for some big footprint, kind of epic war games, by all means, check out Flying Pig Games. Not everything is a war game. It's not always historical. But that is kind of the main focus. Just like Platoon Commander Deluxe Battle of Kursk is their newest release. I believe they just released the rules in, I think, PDF or as an app. Something like that. I just saw Mark had tweeted about that earlier today. I think it's in PDF is what it really is. But with Tiny Battle Publishing, those are smaller footprint games. They tend to be around $25 or so, easily transportable, and a variety of different topics, from historical war games to science fiction conflict simulation to what appears to me to be kind of a political game here. So we will be jumping into that in just a bit. All right, so this is episode 249 of The Daily Dope. So pretty cool. Tomorrow will mark the 250th episode of The Daily Dope. And I say it all the time. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get through 50 episodes. Tomorrow's going to mark 250. Pretty sweet. Do want to mention this is a live stream, so this is the first time, if this is the first time you're swinging in to catch the show, this is very casual. This is a little bit different than what a lot of people are used to seeing as far as their tabletop gaming coverage, because the vast majority of reviewers and things like that, everything is just, you know, it's scripted and everything's set up and edited, and this is all live, so get ready for screwiness, usually. But because it's live, that does mean that there is chat available as well. So I do pay attention to the chat over on YouTube. If you happen to have a question, or maybe you want to say howdy, by all means chime in. Maybe you have a question about The Dark Sands, or when we're taking a look at Chile 73, if that's the case, by all means, ask away, chime in, I will respond. Now, do want to say, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you check out some videos on the Gaming Gang channel and you sort of dig them, by all means, please subscribe. Ring that little bell, because that will not only notify you when there's a new video, it'll also tell you when the stream is going live. Sweet, pretty cool. All right, so normally I have tabletop gaming news, and I spend 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, going through some of the tabletop gaming news. But today, what I wanted to do is, I didn't want to have a 2-hour show, so what can I tell you, right? Didn't want to have a 2-hour live stream. So what I decided is I wasn't going to do some news. I'm kind of, some days I don't do news, some days I do news. Do news? That sounds a little weird, doesn't it? Yeah, it's the do news. It's on a bunch of... Anyway, I'm going to grab a sip here, because it is, once again, very dry in the duct tape studios. Strangely enough, today is Love Your Pet Day, or Pets Day, I should say. Normally, I have at least one of the cats floating around down here in the duct tape studios with me. On Love Your Pets Day, they're not. They're both upstairs. So it's like, okay, fine. I guess it's not Love Your Owner Day. Although I have to admit, Pinky is not my cat. Pinky is my dad's cat. Smokey is my cat. And I do want to point out, if you are a constant viewer, I guess I'll say, of the Daily Dope, of course, you have probably heard a show or two where good old Pinky's chiming away, kind of, you know, caterwauling in the background, although you'll never see her. You'll see Smokey on my lap to start off the show every once in a while. You will never see Pinky. So today on Twitter, at the Gaming Gang, I posted a picture of Pinky and Smokey, so you could actually see what Pinky looks like. Because if you just went by this show, you would have absolutely no clue. You would think maybe I'm just playing an MP3 of a cat making noise, but I'm not. All right, so tonight I am going to review The Dark Sands from GMT Games. It's designed by Ted S. Racier, with art and graphic design provided by Charles Kibler, Roger B. McGowan. Yes, that's where we get that awesome cover shot there for the box. And Mark Simonich. Game is for 2 players. It's for ages 14 and up. You can play in a couple of hours to an entire weekend. Yes, because you can play various different operations, or you can take on the entire North Africa campaign. The game is available now. It does carry an MSRP of $55. Let's pop on over to the other screen. Got the box right here. So, a few things I'm going to point out. I approach my wargaming reviews a little bit differently than some folks out there. Some folks out there, you know, they're looking at, they're gonna provide the review, and they are really, you know, focused towards the grown-yard out there, and it's kind of preaching to the choir, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that. Myself personally, I kind of look at it as, when I do reviews of a lot of war games, unless it's like super heavy, traditional hex and counter, you know, 1970s sort of design style, I sort of look at it as, what kind of appeal could this game have to somebody who might be interested in getting into wargaming, conflict simulation, things like that? My nephew, Cameron, is a great example. 17 years old. Past few years, I've gotten more and more interested in history. So, you know, he has played a lot of the GMT stuff with me. Gonna be first to admit, broke out The Dark Sands with him, and his eyes glazed over as we started going over the rules. So I was like, okay. So I played The Dark Sands Solitaire. Elliot Miller has been on vacation, my best friend, Elliot Miller, over at voiceofe.com. Though he hasn't done anything in almost a year over there. He might be coming back to the gaming gang. Don't be shocked to see him come back, which would be great. Anyway, so I really didn't have anybody to play with. I wanted to get this review out there, so I have been playing this solitaire. Tom Yates is chiming in. Hi, Tom. I don't believe you've popped into the show before. It looks good. I just want to wait for a mounted map. Looking forward to the deluxe edition of the Dark Valley. I don't blame you. I am a fan of mounted maps. I have had some wargamers out there poo-poo me when I say, you know, I wish this was a mounted map, or I wish this was a mounted board. And some folks are like, well, you know, I use plexiglass, and I lay it over the paper map. I don't want a mounted map and stuff like that. Me personally, I kind of dig the mounted maps. So I am with you a bit, Tom, as far as a mounted map. That being said, and we are going to kind of tour the two different maps. There are two pieces to the map. There are two parts. And I have absolutely no way to fit the entire map on the table here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of tour this section of the map. I'm going to show off this section of the map. We're going to talk a little bit about the game. Talk a little bit about the gameplay, kind of a higher level. I'm not going to get into, you know, the real meat and potatoes of everything. Kind of give you my thoughts on what I like about it. Some of the things that I'm kind of like, eh. Hi, have a great evening. I guess Tom might be leaving? I don't know. Lead Magnet. Hey, Lead's back. Lack of humidity in Colorado plays havoc on mounted maps. I have never had that problem with paper. Cool deal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's what you dig. And everybody understands that a mounted map is going to boost up the MSRP on a game. It's, you know, without a doubt, that's going to happen. This has an MSRP of $55. I'll admit, I have seen it still. Oh, I'm just being polite. Thanks, Tom. That's okay. Like I said, this is a very, very casual show. Lead Magnet can tell you that. But welcome aboard, Tom. But I was going to say, mounted maps are always going to boost up the MSRP of a release. And I have seen this still in stock at some online retailers for $40. That is pretty sweet, because GMT games sell out pretty quickly. So, anywho, let's take a look at the back of the box real quick. So, this is a complexity 4 on GMT's scale of 1 to 9. Yeah, okay. I'm with them on that. Usually, I kind of quibble that I think GMT marks their difficulty, their complexity level a little low. 4 out of 9. That makes sense to me on this one. Solitaire suitability, 8 out of 9. Yes, most definitely agree with that as well, because this game does feature chit activation. So if you are familiar with the Dark Valley, and Tom Yates has pointed out that yes, he is certainly a fan, uses pretty much the same system as the Dark Valley. So it'll be, I mean, there's some differences. It's been a long, long time since I played Dark Valley. But if you are familiar with that system already, then you can pretty much jump right into the Dark Sands. I do believe that Ted Racier is working on a Normandy title with the same system, same game system. I don't know if he's going to call it the Dark Shore. I don't know. I have no clue. All right, so let's kind of tour this board real quick. And then I am going to kind of zoom in and we'll kind of talk about some of the specifics of the game. So, this is the east map. Let me push this up a little bit so we can see the bottom here. So we've got the east map. This is the center map. So this is the first piece of the center map. We show a lot of stuff is on this board, so which is very cool. I really appreciate that. That you don't have to, of course, you do already have your player aids, but this information is also on here. So that's very, very cool. One thing I do want to point out, though, if you know it's a 2-player game, you're going to have one player on this side, you're going to have another player on that side. Just the length of the map itself, you're not going to have somebody on this end and then down at that end. It's just, I mean, I can't see it. So unfortunately, that means somebody's going to pretty much play the entire game looking at the map upside down. But that is basically how it's going to go. So touring along, we have, these are the reinforcements up here. So this is the reinforcement schedule for, let's pull this back down. This is a reinforcement schedule for the Commonwealth. So these are the Commonwealth units here. We've got the Assault Combat Result Table. This table is not used very often. This is only used if you're playing the entire campaign, and it's late in the campaign, and it's when Montgomery's on the scene. You use this for the Commonwealth. You do not use it for the Axis. Are there any one-map scenarios? Get to that in a sec, Led, when I get to talking about the various different scenarios, because I will show the scenarios off. Because there are 4 different scenarios for you. Anyway, so I do want to point out that this combat chart, which is on the player handout, the player aid, which strangely enough is up on top, whereas actually this is the combat result table you're going to use much more often. Got that there. So we got a sequence of play. We've got available assets for the Commonwealth. Rebuildable units. Some units are not rebuildable. Got the turn record track. So you're going to up to 17 turns if you're going to play the entire campaign. We've got Operation Compass, which is actually 3 turns. Sunflower is 3 turns. Crusader is a couple turns. Gazala is a couple of turns. And if you're playing the entire campaign, 17 turns. You got replacements. So we have a difference. We have replacements that can vary, and we have reinforcements, which are up in here. Cool thing I thought, as far as taking a look at the reinforcements for both sides, is that you actually will have units that will leave. They're units that are being assigned to other theaters. I thought that was interesting. I liked that. One aspect of this game that some people may really dig, other people may kind of be turned off a little bit by, there are some things that are going to be baked into the game that you're not going to get around. So, for an example, I'll kind of get in a little more detail with that. But there's a lot of things that are going on outside of North Africa that is affecting what's going on in North Africa, just like it was historically. That is simulated in this game. So, for an example, like the Axis devoting a lot of attention to Malta, and because they figure, okay, well, if we can take Malta, North Africa is just, that's it. We can roll up the Brits because we'll take Malta. Of course, obviously enough, they didn't, and the British were able to kind of move the forces that were, involved with protecting Malta, creating more offensive units with them, as opposed to worrying about the Axis taking Malta. So that's one of the things that takes place in this game as well. What else do we got? Oh, okay. We've got victory point track. We got the Axis victory point track. So we've got 2 victory point tracks here. I was starting to talk about the replacements. The replacements here, it's kind of cool because you never know until you pull a chit what your replacements are going to be. And there will be times you'll be like, son of a... because you're not getting what you really need to have. All right, so down here we've got the east map of Egypt with El Amin. Alexandria is there. This is the center map of Egypt. We also have a disruption table and rail advance table, because of course the British were working on that rail line, so you can actually complete the rail line here. You can actually complete the bypass with Tobruk as well. See, here's the railway complete on this map. So on this map, we're going to have the German and Italian reinforcements based on the terms. And of course, as we can see, we've got the starting units. So we got starting units turn 2 and turn 3 for the Commonwealth. So here we've got the center map with Tobruk and Bardia. Then we also have the west map with Benghazi and El Akira. Hila? I don't know. I never know how to pronounce this. Also on this map here, we get the terrain key. So we got the terrain key down here. We got the terrain effects chart. We've got the Axis available assets, the Axis rebuildable units. This is the combat result table that you're going to utilize most often. It's the mobile CRT. Got the modifiers here as well. So we've got an AF, a DF, and a CF. So the AF is the attack factor, DF is defense factor. If you add both of those together, that's the CF. So there's some terminology throughout this that if you're not overly familiar with war games, probably going to throw you off a little bit. Like AF, DF, CF. It's kind of like, okay. We got the combat results key that runs down the side here. There's the bypass, road status, railway complete. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of throw people off a little bit. And so we see that the map is broken up into 3 sections. We got the west map, we got the center map, and we got the east map. They're not all the same scale. So the west map and the east map are actually larger scale than the center. Ah, Tom, well, thank you for popping in. Be sure to, check out the review. Check out the video. It'll be up and rendered later on tonight. Thanks for popping in. Anyways, so you're going to find that the center map is not the same scale. It's a smaller scale. It's the west and the east maps are more telescoped out. Reason behind that is there was kind of more going on in this center area here. You got the Battle of Tobruk, big famous battle there. El Amin, of course, is a famous battle too. Thanks, Tom. But these other maps here are supposed to kind of telescope out because in between here, it's Tom Racier's designer notes kind of point out that on the edges, you're looking at, this is a very, very long front, but not a lot of depth to it. There's not a lot of depth to the front. So rather than making just this super huge long map that's not very deep, that the decision was to actually create the map where you've got you got the west and the east, and then you've got the center. Now, units that are passing across actually will pay extra out of their movement allowance to be able to go from, it's kind of extended movement from here to there. It's possible for them to be disrupted because of the distances they're traveling as far as the game goes. That might throw some people off a little bit because of the map. One thing I do want to point out with the paper map is about at least these 2 paper maps. They lay pretty nicely. One of the aspects I have a problem with paper maps are that they don't, you fold them this way and then they're still popping up and stuff like that. For some reason, these paper maps weren't doing that. I folded them and they lay pretty good, pretty flat. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump up and I am going to zoom in. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the aspects of the game, show off some of the units as well, and talk about the scenarios, some of the victory conditions. But first off, let's zoom way in. to zoom way in here. So that's what we're looking at here. All right, so we have, as I mentioned before, that this is a chit pull activation. So what you'll end up doing is you're going to go and you actually have here a action chit availability chart. So each turn you are going to take a look to see what do you have available as far as the chits that are going to go into. Yes, once again, it is, whoops, Lego Batman, who's doing duty. Good old Lego Batman for my opaque container. So anyway, you're going to see that, so for the first turn, December, the Commonwealth gets O'Connor as a leader chit. They get 2 movement combat chits. They get 2 half movement combat -1. The Axis get 1 movement, 1 combat, 2 half movement, and combat -1, and reinforcement. So, kind of give you an idea of these chits. So, as an example, these are the moves, right? So we got gray. Gray is, of course, going to be the Axis, and brown is going to be the Commonwealth. When you pull this chit, you're going to be able to move your units. So you're going to be able to move all of the units that you are in command of. 2-sided, both sides here, and that's effectively what you're going to do. So you're going to get to move. Now, of course, let's grab a couple of these here. Okay, let's grab some armor. There we go. Okay. So you're going to see that as far as the factors on the units here, it's attack factor, defensive factor, and that is the movement allowance. Of course, a lot of times you're looking at it's just 1 movement point to move, just basically across the empty desert. You do have the terrain key, because there are various different kinds of terrain involved in this, and of course you have to count that accordingly. So like for an example, if you're on a road, 1 movement point is actually going to move you 4 hexes. So that's pretty cool there. So what you would get to do is you'd get to be able to move your units with these move chits. You're not going to be able to fight. You're just basically moving. You could get combat. Here we go. So for an example, this is a combat chit. So if you pull that out, any of the units that you command can enter combat. So attacker versus defender. So you've got that. And dual-sided once again. So you've got the combat here. We also have where we've got a half move. And you'll see here it's a half move with a little plus sign on that. So what that would mean is, obviously enough, you could move all the units that you command half. So for an example, you'd be moving this with a factor of 3, or you flip that over and you can engage in combat, but you're going to have a -1 as your die modifier on for your combat. So you would be attacking at a -1 if you wanted to engage in combat with your units. We also get, let me grab another one over here. Where are you hiding? Okay, so here we go. Okay, so for an example, depending on the turn, right? Because depending on what turn you're in, it's going to tell you which one of these chits, what chits are available, what's going to go in. This can be a little confusing for some people too, because a lot of times with a chit activation, you basically have, okay, here are my like 5 command units, and when I get to pull, if I pull, oh, okay, well, it's this corps, this division, whatever, I get to do everything with that division. That's not the case with this. You have to pay attention to each of these for each turn as the game continues on, because you'll have, like for an example, right? First couple of turns, it's just Italians on the map, really. It's not until turn 3 that we get, oh, there's the Africa Corps, oh, there's Rommel. Rommel's shown up. 21st Corps. So it's important for you to pay attention. So for an example here, right? So we get turn 14, Monty arrives. Well, when Monty arrives, that's when you actually can start using that other combat results table too. So do want to mention that. So anyway, but this is something that you have to kind of keep in mind, is with these chits, you're not going to have the same chits every single turn that are going to be pulled out in whatever order you want, one at a time. So the game will, there's actually a track on the other map where you'll actually lay out the chits that you're pulling. So for an example, if I pulled this out, what I could do with this is I would get to move with everything that's in that core, as well as anything within the headquarters, within so many hexes of the HQ. Where we got one of those? Kind of give you an idea. I know it's not Commonwealth, it's German, but so for an example, right here we've got the HQ here, and we see that there's a little 2. That means that's the range. So when if I pull this chit, I get to activate everything that's part of, it's either going to be a division, brigade, what have you, and any other units that are within 2 hexes of this headquarter. Hey, Ghost World's popping in. Hey, Ghost, good to see you. So what'll happen is we've got a track that's on the other map. I could jump up, zoom out, flip up. Don't need to do that. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to sit there and you're going to say, okay, let's say I'm the Commonwealth. I have initiative, and the turn track will show Axis or Commonwealth as far as initiative. But what'll happen is if one side finished the last 2 impulses, last 2 chit pulls, basically, then automatically the other side is going to get the initiative to start that next turn off. That's one thing that's different with the Dark Sands, that as opposed to stuff that you see in a lot of games that it's not I go, you go, it's by chit pull. A lot of times with those other games, you're just pulling chit, so it's possible that you could have one side just every chit coming out is for them. Now granted, the worm's going to turn and the other side's going to get their opportunity to take actions, move, fire, things like that. With the Dark Sands, it's actually built in where you can only have 2 in a row for a side. So for an example, let's say we got move for the Commonwealth, we got combat for the Commonwealth. Well, if the next chit gets pulled and it's this, nope, sorry, it's gotta be something for the Axis. So we could say, oh, well, boom, there we go. So let's say, well, that's what we pulled. We pulled the half move, or the Axis can engage in combat if they'd like it at -1. Something like this gives you a choice of what you want to do. You can either do the half move or do combat with a -1. We've got logistics. Logistics is a chit that can be pulled. Very, very important in the North African campaign is the concept of supply. Of course, with supply, that's really, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. Not really too entertaining with just these units there. There we go. Let's get Tobruk and that in here. Yeah, show off a little map. So when you pull logistics, One of the victory conditions, in fact, the big victory condition is at the towards the end of the turn, if you're able to look at your opponent and you're checking to see if you're in supply. If all of your opponent's units are out of supply, you are victorious. So one of the main aspects of the campaign especially is making sure that you do not get your supply lines cut. And there are not a lot of ways for you to be able to trace supply, especially for the Axis. The British have it a little bit easier as far as supply, but not fantastic. If you play through the game and you never get to the point where anybody's completely out of supply, then what will end up happening is you are going to tally up your victory points. And as we can see here, if you take a look, we see that there's the Rondel and then the German cross there. Those indicate that those are victory point locations. So the Germans, of course, are looking to hang on to El Alamein and Tobruk. There's 3 locations the Germans are trying to hang on to. Oh, I'm sorry, Axis are trying to hang on to. And every turn that if they hang on to all 3, they'll get 3 victory points. The British have other victory locations as well. So anyway, if you pull the logistics, then you have to go and you have to make sure that all your units are in supply. If they cannot trace a line of supply, then they're going to be marked as out of supply. So you would take, let's say, got these guys. So you'd mark that they're out of supply. Out of supply, of course, is going to be detrimental to you in combat. If you're attacking, you're going to attack with a negative modifier. If you're defending, you're going to give the attacker a bonus. So doing your best to stay in supply is very, very important. When units start falling out of supply, using other units to break through where the enemy is actually blocking off your supply lines becomes very important as well. The game basically has zone of control. So for an example, if I'm doing a movement and I enter an enemy zone of control, I have to stop there. I can't go from, say for an example, I wanted to get over here. Say I want to be on this side with this unit. Let's push that up a little bit. I want to be over here. Let's get this out of the way. I can't go there, 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 right? Can't do it because I entered the zone of control here, and then I have to stop. So if I were down here and I want to end up over here, I have to move like so, which would be 5 of the 6 movement allowance. Combat, pretty straight up, pretty straightforward. Combat is, you're going to take your attacker, you're going to take your attack factors. You can stack. There's stacking units. There is a limit as far as the number of units you can stack, but that's depending on the size of the units as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually tally up your attack factor. The defender is going to tally up their defense factor. And of course, we've got like the 1-on-1 to 1, 2 to 1, 1 to 2 odds. You're going to roll a 6-sided die, add whatever modifiers might be included in it, and you're going to take a look at the combat results. Now, you could have something where it's all the attacker units are eliminated. The attacker has to retreat. The defender has to retreat. It is step reduction in the game. So, as with many games, it's like first step you lose, you're going to flip it over. You can easily tell if a unit has been reduced because it's got a stripe through the center of it. So you can tell that's the reduced side. So first hit, basically it would take, you're going to flip it over. Second hit, it's going to be eliminated. But remember, there are some units that can be rebuilt. There are units that can be reinforced. There are units that can be upgraded as well. There's a lot of different stuff kind of moving parts in this. You do have commanders. So for an example here, we've got O'Connor. We've got, let's get Rommel. Okay, so here we've got Rommel, we've got the Auk, and we got Montgomery. Now you'll notice there aren't a ton of leaders in this, and of course the Commonwealth will have different leaders during different turns. Remember, that's one of the things you got to pay attention to with the action ship availability. But anyway, if they don't have a red box around them, right? Like these two, these actually will go in to your opaque container for you to draw out. And the commanders have a special ability that you can utilize, and it's right on the back here. This tells you what each of the chits do, and it also tells you exactly what that leader's chit allows you to do. If they have a red box, what happens is this is available to you at the beginning of the turn. So once Rommel's on the scene, Rommel does not go into the opaque container. I like the idea of it being reduced, but wish it was more than just one reduction and then that's it. Yeah, there are games out there. What's the one I'm thinking of? No, I was going to say Phantom Leader, but Phantom Leader doesn't really do that. There have been games where you have more than just the one-step reduction, or there have been games where you actually have a roster. This is big on old historical miniatures games, where you would almost have like hit points, and you would mark off the hit points on your unit, and of course, you know, your opponent wouldn't know. Your opponent would have no clue. But yeah, to speed up things, most games do have the step reduction where it's only going to be the one step and then done. There are some where the first hit you actually put like a marker on the unit, and then the second hit is okay, well, now you flip it over, and then next hit gets a marker on the unit, and then the fourth hit, it's out of play. It's done. I want to say, if I remember correctly, I think that's how Knight of Man works. I think it's been a while since I played, but I could have swore I think that's how Knight of Man from Flying Pig Games is. So that so the units have a little more survivability, but then with that, you're looking at that game is not that's kind of, you know, single squad, really, and some individual heroes and stuff. All right, so anyway, so as I was saying, so some of your commanders you're not going to wait for them to be actually pulled from the opaque container to be able to utilize their special abilities. And like I said, special abilities are right here. One of the aspects of the game that I think is pretty cool is once the you've got the 15th and the 21st Panzer divisions on the board, whenever the Axis player gets to move or take combat, the Axis player's Panzers get an extra action, and that kind of where let's get the chart here. Oh, well, look at that! I just opened it right to it. So Panzer Doctrine. So these rules reflect the difficulties the Allies had in responding to the tempo of operations and offensive tactics used by the German Panzer divisions. So here we go. So it's after a move, second action. If you want to, you can have your Panzer divisions engage in combat. Half move, you can do combat -1, combat move, combat -1, half move. So I thought it was pretty cool how the Panzer units get to perform extra actions. One thing I do want to point out, as far as I was talking about the chit pull, as far as each turn, each side cannot have more than 2 move counters and 2 combat counters. You can have more of that in the opaque container, but you're not going to be able to do more than those 2 in your turn. So you're never going to have a turn where it's like, oh my gosh, that's like the 5th time you got to move everybody. No, it doesn't happen. Like I said, I like the fact where it's there's that built-in limitation that each side can only have 2 chits in a row. Then the other side has to have a chit. They get to do something. So keeps people kind of in the game, you know. Another aspect I like of the chit pull is that if you're just pulling moves, not pulling the move plus or the half move combat -1, you're kind of, you know, you're sitting there going, oh man, come on, I got these guys in the perfect position to attack. I need to get something. I need to get a combat shit. Come on. So I do like that. I do like that aspect as well. So kind of give you an idea as far as the turn itself. You've got a replacement phase, which I talked about, the replacements where you're never positive what you might be getting. Now, early in the game, if you're playing the first scenario, you're not actually going to use these, but so give me an idea. There's 41. So you got the replacements here, and the replacements will either tell you, it's going to tell you what year. So you got the replacements. When you get a replacement where it is showing right here. Oh, I'm zoomed out, too far out. I tried to pull it out. You know what? Let me zoom back out a little bit, so I can show you the other. Like I said, this is a little difficult because this map is so big. This board is so big. But as I had talked about before, here, the replacement track. So when you get to these, you're going to actually be pulling another. You can either do an opaque. You could do an opaque container, or if you really wanted, you could put these on the track on the board. I would probably recommend an opaque container. So you reach in and you flip it over, and then it's going to tell you what you get as far as replacements. So it's going to show you as far as what you got depending on the year. So like I said, you're never entirely sure what you might get as far as replacements. So that's the first phase, but like I said, when you first start off, you're not going to have that. You got the action phase. That's when you're going to start be pulling the chits. I talked a little bit about the logistics, making sure that you're in supply. You've got you can be disrupted. Some units will actually have there's a roll of a die. See if a unit gets disrupted. Some combat units can disrupt other units. As I mentioned before, if you're doing the extended movement between the different maps, you got to roll a die. You might get disrupted because of that, because of the long distances you're traveling. But if you're disrupted and out of supply, boy, you are in trouble. I'll tell you that right now. After that, you've got, as far as your combat, we kind of explained. With your combat, you're gonna look at some of the terrain effects. So you got your modifiers here, terrain effects. You're gonna add up your attack and compare that to the added up defense and roll your dice. So you got that. That's how combat basically works. You got reinforcements, which are also something that you're gonna pull chits out for. And then of course, one of the interesting aspects is you'll get reinforcements that are going to be like way far away from where they need to be. And just when you need them to be, like, say, by Tobruk, and they're, near Alexandria, you're trying to race them up here. You can end up having them being disrupted, and then you're like, okay, now I got to screw around so they're not disrupted anymore. But kind of interesting. There's a lot of different wrinkles going on that I'm not gonna like completely dive into, because you've got like attrition, you've got like I said, we've got the various different different aspects to, like with the panzers, getting the extra actions. You've got the special abilities of the commanders that you can utilize per turn, and they can be kind of in depth. Give an example. Where did I just put that? Where did that just go? Is it under here? Yep. Okay, so for an example, like here, Rommel. That's quite a bit of information. Me sitting there looking at it for Rommel. You know, it's not like, oh, take an extra attack. No, there's quite a bit going on. So, like I said, depending on the scenario, and I know Blood Magnet had asked, hey, what's going on with, are there any single map scenarios? You will find that is not going to be the case. Now, that does not necessarily mean that all the action is going to be going on the two sides of, or, you know, there's the three maps, the east, the west, the center. Just because the scenario may not take place on a bunch of the areas or be utilizing the entire African front, you need to use both of the maps because of all the combat results, all the reinforcement information that's up in here. You got to have these at all times. So, but you have to be utilizing both of these at all times. But you've got Operation Compass, 2 turns long. Did I say it was 3 turns earlier? Sorry, it's 2 turns. Sunflower's 3. Crusader's a couple. Gazala is 3. And then, of course, if you want to just take it all the way, just start turn 1, run through turn 17, you can for the entire campaign. One of the things I definitely like, always like these, extended example of play. So you get an extended example of play here. You've got, a couple other things I should mention too. Air assets, artillery, naval bombardment, they're all abstracted. So utilizing these assets, you'll have these assets available to you sometimes. What you end up doing is it's just a combat table modifier. You're not sitting there going, oh, well, I got to call in air support. Now, my history is a bit shaky for this area and time. Are these historically accurate real events operations? Yes, they are. Oh, okay. Sorry, Ghost. I was looking at your previous comment, which was about the step reduction. Yes, these are all real operations. This is really James Mason on the cover of the playbook. I can't believe GMT spent that much money and paid a Hollywood studio so they could have James Mason on the cover. I'm kidding. That's Rommel. So, but the funny thing is, anytime I ever think of Rommel now, and I love the movie Patton, every time I think of Rommel, I picture James Mason. I swear, you know what? I guarantee you, I'm not the only person who does that. Guarantee you, I'm not the only person who thinks of Rommel and pictures James Mason and hears James Mason's very distinct voice. Anywho, so yeah, so you can do the whole campaign game. Even like the 2-turn scenarios, we're going to take you a little bit of time. Because you're going to start off with a good amount of units. There isn't a ton of unit density. As far as the Allies and the Axis units, I guess Commonwealth and Axis units, there was only one counter sheet. The other counter sheet is actually all kind of informational markers and things like that. And that one counter sheet also included the various different chits for activation as well. But one thing that kind of throws me off is, and I guess I can kind of start going into my my summary of the game, what I think of it. I like it. I think it's really good. There's a couple of things. Okay, first off, And this has been more apparent in the past couple of years than it was previous to this. And it's not a super big knock, but it's a little bit of a knock. And it's not against the Dark Sands. The Dark Sands just falls into this. But over the past couple of years, I've seen where it seems like GMT Games are not getting as much development. I don't want to say playtesting. And I don't think they're getting enough development, and I don't think their rule books are getting the kind of editing and, you know, really sharp-eyed look as they should be. And that has kind of been a GMT thing forever, because they're kind of GMT sort of does, if memory serves me correctly, if you are a game designer, GMT normally does not assign you a developer. You go and you get your own developer for the game. I believe that's how it works. Some companies are not like that. Some companies, it's basically, okay, well, you know, we do in-house development. You got an idea, you pitch it to me. Great, I like that idea. I'm going to have you work with so-and-so. GMT doesn't work that way. Now, I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying that these games are broken. We're not talking decision games, okay? I know some people don't like me knocking decision games, but in my opinion, decision games is crap. It's just crap. None of their stuff's play tested, unless things have suddenly changed, because I haven't played one in a long time. But I don't think so. I think it's the same. So GMT, we're not tossing them into like decision games kind of level, but there's an errata that's out from last month, end of January. There's a lot on it. Not like game-crushing issues or anything like that, but there was a lot of errata. So, and of course, thankfully, usually GMT does their living rule books, so you can download the PDF of the updated rules, which are cool. Which I prefer rather than an errata that's saying, okay, on this page it's this, on this page it's that, on this page, that page, this. All these sentences just, you know, you're going running down. So like, okay, so am I supposed to like insert these? Am I supposed to put a little asterisk on that page with that, you know, paragraph right there? Anywho, so out of the box, there's some little issues as far as things that changed in from the actual published rulebook and playbook. There's a new playbook too, and what's now been updated. But like I said, it's not game crushing. It's not like broken. What was it? Wasn't it World at War that GMT did? And it was just broken out the gate, which was very unusual. That's not something you usually see from GMT. So anyway, so there's that. Then something, and this is just my opinion, and I think this is more of a North African campaign sort of thing. There is zone of control. There's zone of control in this, which is very, very typical kind of hex encounter war game sort of thing. To me, I don't see the North African campaign having a lot of like zone of control, because it's just emptiness. That was part of the aspect about why it was some of the English commanders early on were having a hard time wrapping their heads around. There's very little to defend here. It was very difficult to pin an enemy down. So the zone of control kind of throws me off a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that that it breaks the game or anything like that. No, because I honestly don't know of a North African game that doesn't have zone of control. Don't know. Not that I've played tons, but I could have swore No Retreat. It is No Retreat, right? It's got zone of control. Anywho, but that kind of throws me off. Anyway, so for this game itself, I like it. I think it's good. I like the fact that you can just bust out, some quick scenarios. You can easily play solitaire. It's not as schizophrenic as some games that, it's like, well, I want to play the solitaire, or it's sort of like, wow, I got to be like completely handle one side doing one thing, and you know, every decision. Whereas, of course, when you're doing the chit activation, that takes a lot off your hands. You're basically looking at, okay, what's the best plan of attack? What are my best options available to me as this side, and during this, you know, impulse, whatever you want to consider it. Ghost says, hey, that brings up a question. How do most companies handle updates in errata and fixes? Do they offer it as downloads to people who already bought it? Let me finish up my my summary here, and then I will answer that for you, Ghost. Because I don't want to, like, lose track, because I get accused of losing track on stuff. I did that Master of Wills review, which is a cool game. And I don't know if it was one of the design. I think it was the designer who chimed in and was like, "Oh, I just wanted to point out a few things here." I mean, you know, not necessarily corrected me, but added things in that I didn't talk about. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, because I kind of talk about, like, I'm like, okay, so we're not going to, like, dive in and play an entire game of this. But yeah, sometimes I kind of lose track on stuff. So anyway, I like how it's very easily adapted for solitaire. I dig that. I don't have a problem with the center map being a different scale. Maybe that's going to freak some people out. I don't know. Didn't bother me any. It doesn't change really anything. You're not sitting there like, oh, great, now I got to recalculate all, like, the movement rates. And no. So I dug that. I don't think... all right, so this really isn't a knock on the game, but when I look at a game, let's switch back real quick to the other camera. Like I said, when I'm looking at different games, when I'm looking at war games that are not overly complex, and this is not an overly complex game. There's a few, there's stuff you got to really pay attention to. There's little rules that pop up in certain situations, things like that. But overall, this is not a super complex game. So this could be a game that you could possibly kind of introduce newer wargamers to without overwhelming them. That said, I like the fact so we're talking about armor, we're talking about armored cars. Cool deal. Here you go. Here's some artwork. Come on, focus in. Crying out loud. I don't know. I don't think it's really focusing in on that. It's like, yeah, okay, we get some artwork there. Cool. But then when we start talking about, like, infantry, artillery, then all of a sudden we start going to the icons. To me, you could have the most revolutionary game ever in the history of war games. You start throwing the icons in there, people who might have an interest in a historical game see that, and they back off. I want to say I think that's one of the reasons. I'm not saying this because they're a sponsor on the Wednesday shows, but I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of the, the bigger footprint war games from, say, Mark H. Walker's Flying Pig Games. They like to put an image of, like, the infantryman on it. They did that. If I could have swore it's been so long. Conflict of Heroes, I could have swore, has pictures of infantry and things like that. That appeals to people who are non-grognards, right? So unfortunately, I can't see the Dark Sands being a kind of game that, if it's like for an example, I started off the review by talking about how I was going to play it with my nephew Cameron. I figured, yeah, it's not that complex. We'll only play like a 2-turn scenario, 3-turn scenario. I'll play the damn Axis. And as I was explaining the rules, I saw eyes glazing over. And he was interested, but eyes just started glazing over, and he's looking at the counters, and I can kind of see he's sort of like, Now, that doesn't make this a bad game. I'm just saying that this probably is not a game that you're going to bust off, break off the shelf, to play with somebody who's new to war games or a newer wargamer. Somebody should have a little bit of experience under their belt before they start jumping into the dark sands. Definitely dig it. I like it. I don't have a lot of negative to it, except, once again, I like mounted maps. It's got the paper maps. There's a lot of information on the 2 maps. Some people might get a little overwhelmed by that as well. Personally, I kind of appreciated it, where it was basically everything outside of like the action chits. Everything on the player aid is pretty much right there for, right in front of you. But you do need some space. You do really need space to be able to play it, because even the smaller scenarios, you are going to need to have all the reinforcement information and stuff like that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I give the Dark Sands an 8.4. Dinging it a little bit because of it not being completely baked, because there is quite a lot of errata that you have to go through. I'm not a big fan of having to download PDFs of rule books. Now, I understand nobody's ever completely perfect as far as their rules. Very rarely do you see a rule book that doesn't have at least some sort of error. But I dug it. I like the game. I like the system. I like the chit pull. I like the fact that you can never get, like, the worm can't turn too much on you. Now, granted, you can roll bad dice. You can have bad luck with, pulling your reinforcements, damn it, I'm thinking replacements. Sorry. You can have some bad luck pulling replacements. That happens. But you can never get it where it's like, wow, you know what? That's like the 4th shit in a row that my opponents pulled out to get to do stuff. When am I going to get to play this game? Because that does happen. So, all in all, 8.4 out of 10. I definitely do recommend it. Okay, so, Ghost says, anytime I chime in, please don't feel obligated to answer right off the bat. Save my crap to the end. All right, so I'm saving your crap to the end. I'm saving your crap to the pause. Because what I'm going to do, as I mentioned, is we are going to... I'm going to clear this up. So I will be kind of chatting here sideways to you for a moment. So the question posed, because we're going to take a look at Chile 33. Chile 73. Anyway, so the question was posed, what do companies normally do when they have errata, or do they have rule books that have to be updated and things like that? Do they offer as downloads to people who already own the game? Yeah, usually what will happen is, okay, I'll use GMT for an example. So GMT's print runs aren't huge. So keep that in mind. Now, I gave it an 8. I gave the Dark Sands an 8.4 out of 10. I'll also point out, if you can pick it up for $40 from one of the online retailers, and I know people get pissed off when I mention online retailers, but in my opinion, if the difference is $15, $40 you're going to own it, $55, nah, I think I'm probably going to hold off. Maybe wait until like they reprint it, which there's never a guarantee that GMT is going to reprint something. $40, it's a steal. It is excellent. If you can get it for $40, add an extra point to my review score. Seriously. So, all right. So anyway, yeah. So what GMT normally will do is GMT does a thing where a lot of times, not every single game, but for the most part, nearly every single game that I can recall, they have what they call a living rule book. So you can go to any of the game pages and you can download the updated rules. That's normally after a game has come out. For the most part, you can usually, in fact, I don't think there's anything off the top of my head I can think of, like from GMT, that you can't go to the game page and download the rules. I swear, I mean, it's just basically almost anything I can think of. You can go and you can download the rules. Sometimes, you know, if it's like a P500 game, something that they haven't committed to printing yet, it'll be kind of a preview. But normally, that's how they'll do it. You just go to their website. A lot of times, companies will just have a PDF with an updated rule book. Sometimes they go on to Board Game Geek and they go to their game page and they put it in like web links, you know, the errata or, you know, frequently asked questions, things like that. It's not necessarily, it's not for people who, you know, you don't have to have bought the game to be able to get the rules. Now, that said, there are games out there, like, of course, miniatures games, that you're not going to be able to, if they do some sort of an errata on those, you're going to download the errata. You are not going to download a new rule book by any stretch of the imagination. Role-playing games, same thing. You're not going to get a whole new rule book, even in PDF. A lot of times in PDF, company's not going to, you know, redo a PDF for an RPG just for a few, you know, few errors. But as far as board games go, yeah, normally you can get the PDF of an updated rule book. Usually it's not just the errata sheet. So hopefully that answers your question, Ghost. All right, so before I get into our first look at Chile 73, let me once again mention, let me bring on down Lil Magic Whiz Bub. Lil Whiz Bub. So, I pointed out umpteen times that the Gaming Gang, thus the Daily Dope, is no longer for profit. So, what I like to ask is, if you like the Gaming Gang and you like the Daily Dope, or you like one of the two, let me ask you to possibly consider supporting Lil Bub's big fund at the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. See the web address right below, the link right below. Little Bib. Let me get a sip here. Boy, I've been talking without taking a sip in a while. There, now maybe my tongue won't stick to the top of my mouth. Anywho, Lil Bub's Big Fund actually supports special needs animals who are awaiting adoption. So 100% of all funds that are raised by the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in the Lil Bub Big Fund is actually granted out to organizations to help them care for special needs animals who are awaiting finding their forever homes. So, to learn a little bit more about it, let's jump on in and once again hear from Lil Bub herself. Hey, hooray, alrighty. So, once again, Lil Bub's Big Fund for the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So, and as I've mentioned before, if you happen to make a donation, I mean, even if it's a couple of bucks, right? As opposed to me going, hey, go to my Patreon. Taking care of animals that, you know, need help. To me, that's much better thing than just being like, yeah, well, let's make sure Jeff can go have a beer. Who cares? Who cares about that? Anywho, So, what's coming up on episodes this week? First off, let me tell you, I got a package from GMT today. And I was like, cool, because I was like, wow, I haven't seen GMT since the Dark Sands and Space Corps showed up. So I did. I received a package with some reprints. So there's this guy, Ted S. Racier. Who the hell's that guy? His name rings a bell, right? The latest Paths of Glory edition. This is an excellent card-driven game of World War I. So, very, very cool. Nice to see this back in print. This has been out of print for a little while. The fourth expansion to Panzer. I think this is the fourth one. No, or is this standalone? No, this is the expansion. For Panzer, this is France. So this is the latest. I think this is new. I gotta be honest, I think this is new. I don't think this is reprint. So, because I don't recall 1940, a 1940 expansion. Maybe I'm wrong. But so this arrived, so that was cool. And then I was super pumped. CPQR, which has been out of print for as far as I understand, this has been out of print for quite a while. And I dig ancients. I like ancient history. So very, very cool. So this is the Great Battles of History, Volume 2. I think it's the Second Punic War. Don't see it on the front, but I think this covers the Second Punic War. And I love the counters. Let's get a little better look. See if I can tilt that. Yeah, get rid of some of that glare. Counters look pretty sweet. I have always heard good things about this, but this is another game that has been out of print for quite some time. Anywho, on tomorrow's show, which is the 250th episode of The Daily Dope, I will be reviewing Coriolis, Emissary Lost from Free League Publishing and Modifius Entertainment. It's the first part of a new campaign. Lots in here. So I'm going to talk about that. Then on Friday, I'm going to take a peek at The Laughter of Dragons from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. It's the latest adventure supplement for the One Ring role-playing game. I don't think this book comes out until April. So Cubicle 7 got this to me pretty quick. And if you watched yesterday's show, I was joking about how I also received the Breland Region Guide, which is for Adventures in Middle-earth, if you want to play 5e Tolkien. And I got this package like this. And I was like, wow, what's in that? And I knew that Cubicle 7 was sending me these books. And I was like, those books aren't going to be this thick. There's no way. That can't be it. It's like, what else is in it? What else? Oh, actually, you know what? Here we go. I actually have it down here. So this is the package, right? This is the bubble wrap that was around those two books. No joke. No joke. This is really it. This is really the package with... I was like, how much bubble wrap are you guys giving me? So Ghost said, hey, a beer never hurts. Do I have a plan on looking at the One Ring books that I got in from... When do I plan on looking at them? I just answered that for you. Laughter of Dragons is the only one that's for the One Ring. So if you are not familiar with how Cubicle 7 operates with the One Ring and Adventures in Middle-earth, and I'm not pretending to be a mime, they'll release something for the One Ring first. Then it used to be about a year. It would take them about a year and a half, well, about a year for them to port it over to Adventures in Middle-earth. They've gotten much quicker on the turnaround. So they used to be a couple of books behind, I think. Don't quote me on this, but I think the Breland Region Guide was actually the previous book before the Laughter of Dragons. So Laughter of Dragons is on Friday. I'm going to do back-to-back on RPGs. I do know for a fact tomorrow I am receiving a package that is supposed to have 5 core books from Untitled Games. I think I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, including The Witcher and also Cyberpunk. I think they still call it Cyberpunk 2020. It may just be Cyberpunk now. What is it? Kids from Outer Space, I think, is one. Castle Falkenstein is one that I've always I've heard good things about, but never actually had a chance to take a close look at. So those are on the horizon too. All different kind of stuff. Yeah, I kind of roll with what comes floating in. We should see some Osprey stuff. We should see Cursed Earth, which is should be coming out. I think I might be getting a copy of Wildlands, which was the Martin Wallace. I almost said Martin Lawrence. Martin Wallace design that came out before the end of the year. It's got kind of miniatures and stuff in it that I've heard some cool stuff about. So a lot of stuff on the horizon. So never know. You never know what's happening. So, all right. Anyway, as I promised, we're going to take a look at Chile 73 from Tiny Battle Publishing. It's designed by Brian Train with artwork provided by Jose Ramon Fuara? Sorry. The game's for 2 to 4 players. It might be 2 or 4. Ages 12 and up. Plays in about 45 to 90 minutes. And it is actually available right now from Tiny Battle Publishing for $22. Normally does carry an MSRP of $25. I am not positive if this is on Wargame Vault or not. I think it might be. If it is on Wargame Vault, it's probably $15. $12 to $15. And of course, I should mention, if you are going to go to any of the one bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads, and that way, if you do make a purchase at any of these sites, a little portion comes to me. All right, so here's Chile 73. So this is in a Ziploc bag. It's got a small footprint. A game of intrigue, uprising, and revolution. Let's get rid of this bag, though, because the bag's giving us a lot of glare. Okay, so we got, obviously, those are the rules. So we've got a map, or a board of some sort. Got a counters, and now these are big counters. We got 3 sheets. They're not exactly an inch, are they? No, about 3/4 inch. Yes, that's right. Your from here to here should be about an inch on most human beings, amazingly enough. And stupid ass me. I actually will use that to take a look. Yeah, about yeah, this actually is kind of a cool cover, isn't it? It's like, yeah, here's my newspaper. Got my cup of coffee here. So yeah, kind of cool. So so we've got these counters here. So we got those. Notice we got different colors. I'm going to take a guess that I don't think they're different factions. I think they're just different aspects. So we got that, and then we got the paper map here. Let's take a look at the rules first off. See what we got. Let's make sure, yeah, we can fit it all in. So we got the introduction, components, setup, sequence of play. Introduction. In the Third World, coups d'etats have changed more governments than elections since World War II. Most coups involve using part of the armed forces of a country to seize power from a ruler, though there is usually little overt conflict. The coup d'etat is generally a much less bloody way of seizing power than its distant cousin, the popular revolution. The military coup that overthrew Salvador Allende, 73. I was 6 years old. Sorry. You know, I mean, come on. I'm old. I'm not that old. The elected president of Chile on September 11th, 1973, was a typical example. In Chile 73, 2 or more players, okay, so I guess it could be 3, act as the leaders of political or professional factions in Chile in the summer of 1973. Some players will be plotting individually or severally. Severally? That doesn't sound right. I don't know. To effect a change in the existing government. They will be opposed by others who wish things to remain as they are. The game is played in two phases. Pre-coup phase, where players attempt to secure support for their faction and thwart the others. And the coup phase, where both pro-government loyalist and rebel sides face off in direct combat. Okay. So we got components. So we got counters. We got units. So they represent groups or organizations. So we see media. So military units. So it says blue. Blue are civilian units. So these are civilian units. So we see leaders, intellectuals, students. So I see we've got like the blue, and then we got blue with white. And it seems to be like control of these. Right? So see we've got media, and then we have media control right here. Okay, so green are military units. So we got Marines, B1, Marines, transport, tactical, leaders. Okay. Orange are paramilitary units. So there we go. We got the police. And those are the three kinds. All right. Control chits. There are 43 of these to correspond with the 43 units. Okay, right? Okay. Except for, of course, El Presidente himself. There's no control unit for that. Action chits. These are the brown ones. Yes, these brown ones are action chits. Oh no, yeah, it says action chits are covered beige. So we got the map showing the capital zone, outskirt zones, remote zones, game scale, time and space are abstracted in the game. Yeah, I assume that. Notes, controlling of units, setup, civilian hard power. At the beginning of the game, each player must decide two things. Which faction to represent, military, paramilitary, or civilian. Which hidden agenda to follow, soft power, hard power, or presence. That's a sequence of play talking about the pre-coup phase. Shit effects. Shit happens, what can I tell you? Yes, I know. Everybody's been waiting for me to bust that one out. Coups, revolts, and populist uprising. Right up my alley. There you go, Ghost. Cool deal. So we got the coup phase here. And victory. If at the end of any player's action segment there are only loyalists or only rebel units in the capital zone, a ceasefire is declared. Play stops immediately, the game ends, and victory is judged. Players on the side left in occupation of the capital zone total their victory points, modified in accordance with the hidden agenda they picked at the beginning of the game. Winner of the players, the winner is the player with the highest VP total among the winning team. Settle ties by playing another game or going outside and having a fist fight. There you go. All right, nice. Some designer notes as well. So, there we go. And we've got a handy-dandy little unit identification table. We got a table for El Presidente, what he's doing. Victory point chart. Let's see what this map looks like. This map looks kind of cool. Like I had mentioned earlier in the show, Tiny Battle has a nice reputation of, you know, they'll roll some different stuff out there. You know, like for an example, the Space Marines, which I know they can't say that, I can say it. The Galactic Marines series, I should say, from my buddy Herman Lutman. Prime example. I mean, it's, you know, combat simulation of that, but it's a science fiction game. It's 3 different science fiction games, I should say. All right, so we got remote zones, executive suite, paramilitary box, civilian box. So it's telling us what each of these areas are, too. Industrial, urban, suburban, parks, impassable hills, bridges, objectives, and locations. So we got a university, airports. Is that what that is? Are these airports? Yeah. Sure enough. I didn't realize they're... Oh, no wonder. Okay, I'm sitting there like, are these all connected? How many airports are over here? But they're saying these are remote sites, outskirt zones, the capital zone. All right, cool. Cool deal. This looks interesting. So I will be checking this out and reviewing this in probably a couple weeks. I know one of these weeks I got to really kind of set aside as a, I don't know, I was thinking about doing a war game week, but then I got all these RPGs, so it's like I can't really do a war game week. So there we go. So that is Chile 73 when we take everything outside the bag. So cool, very nice. And once again, of course, I do want to mention and say a big thank you to our Wednesday sponsors, Flying Pig Games, as well as Tiny Battle Publishing. Yes, Tiny Battle Publishing. So that's it for today's show. Pretty long show, hour and a half, kind of cool, kind of sweet. Anywho, as I like to say, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to go visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Yeah, I'm taking a look. We had some drop frames tonight, so hopefully not too bad. Fingers crossed. So, I will be back tomorrow on Thursday. I will be reviewing Coriolis Emissary Lost. So, until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.